title of this talk, What Are You Seeking? What are you seeking? What are people generally seeking? I would say in the times in which we live, maybe the whole world would be seeking a vaccine in order to nullify the threat of the coronavirus so that we can move on and we long for the world to get back to normal. Well, in terms of a vaccine, most experts who know what they're talking about are saying that a vaccine could become available, but not until next year, and maybe not widely available until the middle of 2021. Well, we're only in the second half of 2020 at the moment, so we may have a long time to wait. So that's one thing which a lot of people are seeking. Of course, people seek all kinds of things. They seek all kinds of things at different parts of their lives, and most people are always looking for something. Well, our story today is from the New Testament, and we're now going to hear some verses being read from Luke chapter 19. So thank you very much.
Reading is from Luke chapter 19, verses 1 to 10. Jesus brings salvation to Zacchaeus' home. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was wealthy. He wanted to see who Jesus was, but because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. When Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today." So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly. All the people saw this and began to mutter, "He has gone to be the guest of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount." Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost." Thanks be to God.
Thank you, Margaret, so much for that reading. So we're thinking about Zacchaeus. Probably you've heard of Zacchaeus. It's a common story that's told to the children in the Sunday school. It's a story that many of us know well. And the problem with a story that we know well is that we can actually miss some of the details because of the over-familiarity. I want to make 3 points this morning. First of all, Zacchaeus, he didn't measure up. He didn't measure up. And to start with something obvious, he was short of stature. He didn't measure up. He was short of stature. So, I give lots of messages, and sometimes people say that they enjoy my jokes, and sometimes they say they don't. So you can make up your own mind this morning, because we're talking about Zacchaeus being perhaps one of the shortest people in the Bible. So, question for you. Who is the biggest Bible character? The biggest Bible character? Who's the biggest person in the whole of the Bible? Any idea? Let me tell you. If you look at the Gospel of John, if you turn to chapter 4, you'll see that Jesus met a woman at the well. And we're told that he met a woman of Samaria. A woman of some area. Get it? All right, it's terrible, I know. So moving swiftly on, Zacchaeus didn't measure up because he was short of stature, number one. And secondly, he was also short on honesty. He was short on honesty. He was a tax collector, and tax collectors in those days were notorious for milking their fellow Jews usually and lining their own pockets. And that certainly was the case in terms of Zacchaeus. By his own testimony, we know that that is what he was doing. He was short of stature, he was short on honesty, and something which is true of all of us, none of us actually measure up, because all of us fall short of what? We fall short of God's standards. There's a verse in the New Testament in Romans chapter 3 verse 23. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. All fall short of the glory of God. When we're talking about God's glory in this context, it's more in terms of God's character, in terms of his standards. We all fall short of the glory of God. Why? Because we're all sinners. We're all sinners. Sin means to miss the mark. And the sense in Romans chapter 3 verse 23, this idea of falling short, what Paul has in mind with the word that he uses, it's a word that's borrowed from the sport of archery. And the idea is like missing the target, missing the bullseye. And that's certainly an apt description of where we all are as human beings in terms of God's standards. We don't measure up. None of us. None of us measure up. We all fall short of God's standards. Zacchaeus didn't measure up. I'm afraid we don't either. Okay, so now I'm up a tree. Zacchaeus famously went up a tree. Why? Because he was seeking something and he thought that he could find what he was seeking for by being able to see Jesus that day and hear what he had to say. The fact is, Zacchaeus had lots of money. He was rich, not legitimately rich because he was a tax collector and defrauded his fellow Jews, as we've said, but nevertheless he was rich. But evidently he wasn't happy. And I think that's true generally of people, many people in the world today. It's an unequal world, and some people are very poor, other people are very rich, but the rich people aren't necessarily happy. And if you hear sometimes their testimony, they'll say that they're not happy. Classic example is people who lived reasonably contented lives with not much money, until they won the lottery. Their lives changed. They were able to spend lots of money, buy lots of things, and yet 6 months later they would say, actually, I'm probably more miserable than I was before I won the lottery. So this contentment idea can be an elusive thing, and evidence would suggest that it's not gained through having lots of money, being rich, and that certainly was the case with Zacchaeus. Secondly, about Zacchaeus, not only was he rich but not happy, he was not bothered about his dignity. Clearly, he climbed a tree. The crowds would have been laughing at him. He was a small man going up a tree in order to be able to see the young rabbi who was walking by. We're told in the scriptures that he was actually not just a tax collector, but a chief tax collector. So there would have been others who were working for him. It would have been very undignified that day for Zacchaeus, but evidently he wasn't bothered about that because he was so determined. He was so determined to find what he was looking for. And can I say, I think we're all seeking something. The experts say that the common denominators in the human race generally is that we are seeking three things: acceptance, significance, and security. Acceptance, significance, and security. And we look in all kinds of places in order to find those three aims: acceptance, significance, and security. Sometimes I think we look in the wrong places, but can I say to you that the best place to look is in the Lord Jesus, because Jesus will give you the acceptance, the significance, the security that you're longing for. We're all seeking something. Let me share a truth from the passage that Margaret read to us earlier on, that Jesus seeks the lost, and he is always seeking the lost. He was seeking the lost that day when Zacchaeus climbed the tree, and he singled Zacchaeus out, and he used a word, a little word that we're familiar with. It's the word must. He said to Zacchaeus, I must stay at your house today. I must do it. This was part of Jesus' agenda that day. Jesus singled out Zacchaeus. And as you're listening to this, wouldn't it be wonderful? Wouldn't it be wonderful if Jesus singled you out? Wouldn't it be wonderful if he singled you out? Well, he does. He does. He cares for each of us. And you're special to him. He's always seeking the lost. I wonder whether you're lost in any way as you listen to this message. As for Zacchaeus, well, he found what he was looking for. He found what he was looking for, Money wasn't what he was looking for. He realized that, but he found peace with God. And I hope that you find what you're looking for, and I hope you're looking for things that are important in life, and there's nothing more important than finding the Lord. Money won't do it. It's been said that money will buy a bed but not sleep. Money will buy books but not brains. Money will buy food but not appetite. Money will buy finery but not beauty. Money will buy a house but not a home. Medication but not health. Amusements but not happiness. Sex but not love. A passport to everywhere but heaven. Well, for Zacchaeus, that day, he found the most important thing in the world. He found Jesus and he found peace with God. And I hope that you have found peace with God also. Jesus is still seeking the lost and still in the business of not just seeking the lost, but finding the lost and saving the lost. Now, today, I'm in an area in Stoke Floods. Many of you are watching this message having been on the Zoom meeting today. Well, the Zoom meeting last week, someone admitted that these days, because the vegetation is so overgrown in this part of Stoke Floods, that they actually got lost here. They live not far away, but they got lost here, and people do get lost at various times in life, in various places. For me, let me share an experience years ago when I was climbing in the Peak District, and I was on that lovely mountain, Kinder Scout, and as I went up the mountain, it became more and more foggy, incredibly dense fog, so much so that you could hardly see in front of you. I lost my way that day. Eventually, I found two other people who were looking at their map. It was hopeless. None of us could see at all where we were. They were just as lost as me, and the three of us joined together. It was such a relief eventually to find a safe path down the mountain. So we survived that particular experience, but people are lost. So many people are lost. Jesus is still seeking the lost, finding the lost, and saving the lost. And there is no greater experience than knowing that Jesus has found you, and not just found you for now, but found you forever. Now, a lot of things have been said about this coronavirus, which of course is still with us. Seems to be lurking around a lot longer than many people expected. A lot of Christian people are giving all kinds of opinions as to where the virus came from, what God's role is in all of this. Let me say to you that I believe that God is using the virus to get our attention. He's using the virus to get your attention. And the message to you today is that God wants you to listen to what he's saying to you. He wants you to seek him wherever you are in life, whether you already know him or not. He wants you to seek him. Will you do that? Will you do that? There's all kinds of ways that you can seek him and find him, but he is not far from any one of us. So be like Zacchaeus. Do whatever it takes in order to not just seek Jesus, but to find him. And may God bless you. Thank you so much for listening.